Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. The chaos is continuing in Israel now, with physical fighting breaking out between the Minister of National Security inside of Israel, who just came back to the Israeli government, and the head of the Shin Bet, the one that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to sack but is refusing to be sacked. We're going to talk about this. Benjamin Netanyahu sacking the Attorney General, calls internally inside of Israel to resist now and take down Benjamin Netanyahu, alongside the developments that are happening inside of Gaza, the West Bank, and the new proposal that's coming from Egypt to end the war with the escalation in the Red Sea with Ansarullah in Yemen. We're going to start off with the report that came. Not many people spoke about this. For some reason, Israel tried to keep it discreet, but there were a couple of sources publishing this inside of Israel, that Itamar Ben-Gvir, he had a meeting with the Shin Bet head, alongside the head of the Mossad and the IDF chief of staff. During that meeting, the talks became more and more intense, screaming, shouting, and that's something that happened previously many times, by the way, in meetings between senior Israeli officials in the Benjamin Netanyahu government, in the previous cabinet as well, and things almost reached physical violence. One report said that people were trying to throw chairs at each other. But this is the first confirmation that Itamar Ben-Gvir tried to choke the head of the Shin Bet, in particular because, by the way, the head of the Shin Bet was leading an investigation into the police that is under or operates under Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is the Minister of National Security, and he was investigating terror groups within the police force inside of Israel. Imagine terror groups within, what's described as terror in Israel. Imagine how extreme that has to be. But we're talking about movements like Kahana movements and other radical movements that are aligned with the ideology of Itamar Ben-Gvir. And of course, at the end of the day, this is state policy. However, he was conducting investigation based on that. That's why Ben-Gvir was very upset about this. And the report that came from Israel said that it was actually the head of the Mossad and the head of the IDF, the IDF chief of staff. They were the ones that split them apart, because otherwise he was about to completely suffocate Ronen Bar, according to this report. Now, this is signaling that the problems are getting much more tense inside of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu and what he's leading now, this whole barbarism in Gaza, alongside internal dictatorship, the judicial reform attempts again, and him wanting to sack anyone who opposes him or showing any sort of challenge to him inside of the Israeli establishment. This is leading people to call for outright resistance. Primarily, the head of what's called in Israel the Democrats, Yair Golan, who's a previous deputy IDF chief of staff, who is a man who called for people to refuse previously to serve. And now he's saying Benjamin Netanyahu need resistance, and people need to deal with him like they dealt with Milosevic. Imagine that. That man was a war criminal, and he also is saying this is how we need to treat Benjamin Netanyahu. He's also a war criminal, of course, and shut down the whole market inside of Israel. A few days back, we spoke about the business forum inside of Israel, saying that they will actually shut down the whole economy of Israel if Benjamin Netanyahu continues down this line. But now there are more talks about shutting the country down in resistance, in what Israelis are now calling resistance inside of Israel. And the trouble isn't just with certain figures, it's expanding inside of the Israeli establishment now for the first time between the defense minister Israel Katz and Zamir, the IDF chief of staff. The Israeli defense minister Israel Katz, he wanted to summon an Israeli who was in the army who was being investigated, and he wanted to summon him directly. Israeli IDF chief of staff said No, I do not accept instructions through media announcements. Now, the IDF chief of staff is supposed to be under the defense minister. But this shows you how much of a bunch of amateurs these people are in the Israeli government, especially with Israel Katz, by the way. Israel Katz is a man without any relevant experience to have the position of a defense minister. Usually the position of a defense minister inside of Israel is held by someone who was the IDF chief of staff. But in a rare occasion, Benjamin Netanyahu, and of course just to have someone under his thumb, he appointed someone with hardly any experience just for him to be a yes man and a barking dog. So he's a yes man and a barking dog, but he thinks his barking can work on everyone. It's not even working on the IDF chief of staff. So it's all chaos. And now Benjamin Netanyahu, he fired the Attorney General, the legal advisor for the government. Also, people are criticizing him for that. They are still saying that they're going to go ahead with the sacking of Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet, despite, again, all of the criticism that's coming, despite the illegal challenges, despite the Supreme Court saying that, well, they can't do it, you know, they issued an order saying that you need to put that on hold. They accepted motions that went out against the government to keep the head of the Shin Bet. It's chaos, it's havoc. And what does Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, do with all this chaos and havoc? He increases the genocide inside of the Gaza Strip with all sorts of garbage excuses. Once they tell you want to target every political member of Hamas, justifying their massacres in hospitals. Now they have this new policy of targeting cars inside of Gaza, in particular Toyotas that are used by Hamas. Limited military campaigns, ground invasions in Tel Sultan in the south, alongside massacres, of course, too, massacring families, and in the north as well. With the Palestinian resistance still striking, by the way, today the armed wing of the PIJ, they launched 2 missiles on Nir Oz and Sderot that Israel said that they intercepted. With Ansarullah from Yemen also targeting Israel again, sirens being heard 270 locations in Israel. And Ansarullah declaring again that they're going to continue attacking despite these additional forces being sent by the United States, and Donald Trump threatening more with Iran now. So he's taking it out on the Palestinians, but it doesn't appear that any of the Israelis now, apart from his cult, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu's cult, are buying into this, really. I mean, but with the statements that are coming now from inside of Israel, it looks like more and more people have really had enough of him and all of the excuses. Even when you want to talk about Gaza, even when you want to talk about, you know, a threat and Hamas and this and that, they're simply not buying it anymore. They're seeing that Benjamin Netanyahu is using this for his own reasons, and they are increasing the tone with them, which leads us to the recent report that Egypt is now having a new proposal that Hamas and the United States accepted. Reuters and a couple of other networks, they published this. No official comment came from Hamas yet. Israel is not responding yet. But what is this proposal exactly? Well, there was very limited information coming out from this report saying that Egypt proposed a continuation of the ceasefire, Hamas releasing prisoners of war every week. In the first week, they're going to be releasing 5 in exchange for Israel going into phase 2, confirming that they will adhere to everything with US guarantees, and then allowing everything into Gaza. With them declaring also that no Palestinian faction will have any role to play in Gaza the day after. By the way, that was Abdel Ati, the foreign minister of Egypt. He said that no Palestinian faction will have any role. It will be independent figures with no ties whatsoever with any Palestinian political party, but they will be Palestinians. And that there will be a resumption of the Palestinian Authority. He did not declare like outright, but from when he says Palestinian Authority, we understand that that's the West Bank Palestinian Authority inside of Gaza after 6 months. Talk about if, potentially that working or not working. I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't seem like any of this seems to be working. Number one, the Egyptian proposal. Even if reportedly the US agreed and Hamas agreed and Israel still not agreeing, and reports in Israel saying, oh, there's still gaps. But based on what? I mean, okay, if the US says now, okay, we accept this, Israel stretches for 2-3 months with more bombardment against the innocent people, and then, they'll say, oh yeah, we accept it, and then they breach it. I mean, well, what are the guarantees, really? It's becoming a joke. And it's becoming a joke because of the total lack of proper action, primarily from the Arab states. It's as if everything is fine. I mean, even when Egypt is talking now about, definitely Hamas not going to be there for 6 months, they're not going to play a role, all of that. Why is no one talking about Israel not playing a role? Disarming Israel, the genocide entity, the war criminal, taking down Benjamin Netanyahu, the war criminal, making sure that this terror entity does not continue with its apartheid policies and injustices against the Palestinian people. I mean, today in the West Bank, you had a family in Hebron going out for iftar, the meal in Ramadan, and they went back after 10 minutes because their neighbors called them. Why? People coming, taking over their house, taking their belongings, backed by the Israeli army. Why? Oh, they claim they bought it. That's the West Bank. No, Hamas doesn't govern the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority of Abu Mazen in the West Bank, sitting there talking about peace for over 30 years with Israel. And Israel does that regularly. That's like a regular occurrence, by the way. That's like something mild. And there was a video published too. So imagine you are going out for dinner with one of your relatives, and then your neighbor calls you, oh, someone's in the house. Oh yeah, it's my house now, right? And taking belongings, getting stuff out, and they're supported by armed terrorists, and you can't say anything. As in armed terrorists that belongs to a terror state. That's the West Bank. So someone tell me, you're talking about Gaza and making sure, who runs and who doesn't run Gaza, and you're not talking about the state of Israel that has been doing this for ever since its inception, stealing people's land, stealing people's homes, expelling them out of their homes, and people barging in, going in. Because they said this home belongs to the Jewish people? I mean, what is that exactly? They were promised that home, expelling people who've been living there all of their lives. Isn't that the bigger problem? And that this country is accepted by, international organizations and, many Western countries, Arab states sitting there as if, nothing is happening. I mean, up until when? But really and truly, if Egypt wants to come with another proposal, or even if anyone else wants to come with another proposal now, so long as we have the same recipe, there is no guarantee. Stop being stupid. Get your heads out of the sand. Israel and the United States are the same thing. The US administration is worse than Netanyahu. They're giving them the okay to annihilate everything now. And if Egypt comes with another proposal now, and the United States says yes, and Hamas even if Hamas want to say yes, I mean, yes on what? I mean, then these were the reports again, right? We had no real confirmations, but this is being reported now. And it doesn't look like really anything will be solved. It looks like things will continue to escalate if we continue down with this recipe. That is, unless Benjamin Netanyahu is doing all of this up until he gets himself potentially, that is, out of the mess. I mean, he did get himself out of many messes before. There's an argument that this recent escalation gave him certain things. Well, Ben Gvir is back in the government. He's not going to struggle with passing the budget. His government is protected, and he's going to still play with the timeline as he wants. He has more yes men around him. He's about to sack the IDF, the head of the Shin Bet, potentially go ahead with the judicial reform, and not adhere to the Israeli Supreme Court. And he might get away with it. He might get away with it. That is unless the actual movement inside of Israel applies enough pressure to take him down. And with this violence that's taking place internally, it's becoming more and more likely. But if that doesn't work, like it hasn't worked before, and people were just short of taking that next step to take Benjamin Netanyahu down, and he remains there, he will, well, first and foremost, drag the Israelis into hell. And because they use the Israeli people as cannon fodder at the end of the day. You know, the Israelis are the first victims of this whole brainwashing and this hatred and everything to be used for the state. They're still going to be used. The prisoners of war are, well, more are going to be killed. We had 2 life signs from two of them today, published by the Palestinian Resistance. What's going to happen after that? He's going to continue if he's not taken down. And things will escalate, and he could perhaps eventually drag the United States and get them into a war with Iran, something that he's been dreaming about for a very long time. And nothing is credible from what's coming out of the mouth of Trump and Witkoff and of the United States administration. There's nothing credible from what they say. These people are pathological liars, like the people who they're allied with, and they've made so many 180s on statements they had. So there is no trust here. There is no trust. So it looks like things are becoming more and more unclear. Nothing is becoming clearer. You know, we thought there was a ceasefire and there was something might continue. No, now there's total cloud. Everything is so cloudy and it's not clear. But what is clear is, well, there are internal problems inside of Israel that are escalating to levels of physical violence. And outside, well, there are at least very few who are standing up against the United States administration and Israel, and are not shamefully not taking any action, and some of them not even speaking a word against what's happening. And that's primarily the Arab states surrounding Israel. So the signs of hope are, well, those who actually resist and continuing to resist. It appears to be that Gaza and Yemen now are the new graveyards, new old graveyards of empires. This is appearing to be the case. Whereas countries sitting there with whole armies are pointless, totally pointless, no weight whatsoever, no integrity, and, well, what do you have all of this power for exactly? To protect who? And to save who? And to operate on whose behalf?